Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner, MetaZone, Rovi, and MScribe, and today we're going to see an update on what's going on with crypto stocks.
Stonks, dude.
Stonks.
We had the wrong. Oh yeah, here he is. This is the stonk fella.
He's here. Yeah.
We've always had him just in, I don't know, spirits. Never real any actual utility for him being present.
Right.
But these days, it was almost like a premonition, right? What do you call those? It was like foreshadowings.
Foreshadowing, yeah.
Little did we know, this guy, he's like, they don't even know. It's like crypto stonks is going to be the actual meta of this cycle. We definitely didn't know that, but
no,
we're starting to get clued in, and been paying attention to our recent videos. I mean, what started as a hunch is becoming a bona fide, verifiable, like macro trend.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Would
Let's jump into it. Yeah, because we got a lot of tabs here. But Bitminer, we talked about it. I would say maybe a few days ago, almost a week ago.
Actually, it was like 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Feels like a week, huh?
Yeah, it does.
Literally 2 days ago, as we're delving deeper into the crypto treasury meta, but the most recent hype around Ethereum entering into the discussion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ethereum treasury companies. So, which started with Joe Lubin.
Mm-hmm.
Now Tom Lee's Bitmine came into the equation, and since then, absolute explosion happening.
Yeah, as you can see here, in the 1 week, we're up 2,300%.
Yeah, and since the video we made a couple days ago, roughly 300 to 400% since then. So it's quite the steamboat before our eyes, and when us crypto degens were like, this is like very palatable, right?
Yeah.
This is what we've always been looking for. Some sort of an active market, right?
It's pretty interesting. You have to wait for the market to open 8 a.m.
That is different.
And then it closes at 4 p.m.
Yeah, which is like totally insane. You know? Like it's actually, today's Thursday. It closed a couple hours ago because July 4th is tomorrow.
That's
like,
right.
Man, imagine the luxury of Wall Street, dude.
It's got to go to the yacht, dude.
Yeah, we all need to aboard our vessels to the Hampton Islands or whatever the fuck. We're all off to sea.
Yeah.
Fuck all you fucking losers trying to trade while we're partying it up. Dude.
Yeah.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah, so we got Bitmine, and of course, Strive reveals new Bitcoin treasury. So this is another one we talked about in the past. And more Bitcoin, and that's how it all started with MicroStrategy. And then we got Bitmine. Now we have Strive focusing on Bitcoin versus Ethereum. And then Strategy, of course, $403, which a total market cap of over, what is it, over 100 billion?
112 billion.
112 billion, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we should really introduce the topic at hand here, right? It's like because of, Bitminer's performance, and it's kind of like a verified, event that we need to be really paying attention to this market. So how do you get exposure to it, right? Clearly there's like an intersection happening between traditional finance, equities markets, macro conditions, whatever, and cryptocurrency. So people should know what are the sector categories to kind of keep an eye on, because crypto is a very diverse industry, right?
It's getting more diverse now.
Yeah, but people are just not going to discover that, right? We know that because we're natives, right?
Yeah.
We know there's more than just Bitcoin out there, right?
Yeah.
So it's good for everyone if you guys are just like dabbling into this new speculative arena to understand the fundamentals that are part of the cryptocurrency industry and that eventually will funnel into the equities markets, right? Starting with Bitcoin, we're seeing today with Ethereum, and we're going to talk about a couple other sectors on top of that you need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and so Michael Saylor has been doing this for 5 years, since I think 2020, and it's taken quite a number of years before it's really taken off.
100%.
And really, there's the inflection point is the new administration with Donald Trump supporting cryptocurrency, and all of a sudden we have the floodgates open.
100%. Yeah, we're going to see at the end of this video, there's a reasoning behind this inflection point.
Yeah.
And you said the key word, Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He's quite the mover here, right?
Yeah.
Mover of markets.
Yeah, so we got another one here. Blockchain Group raises $13 million in advance, and so Blockchain Group is a European company, right?
Yeah, so like the notable thing, so if you want to try and dabble into the Bitcoin treasury space, of course you got your blue chips, right? Like your already high value market caps, like a MicroStrategy, a Meta Planet, whatever. They're like pretty high valuation already, but they still have upside potential. But if, this is how you approach these markets from like an investor standpoint, right? Am I looking for the safe bet that can get me a 5 to 10x over a year? That's like your micro strategies, right?
Yeah.
That's like a for sure thing. You could buy it and you could sleep well at night.
Yeah.
And then you're going to discover, okay, I need a much bigger risk profile so that I can get a higher multiple. And then you got to go a little bit lower in the market cap trenches, right? And then among them, you got to find differentiators and such. So, for example, this one here, the major differentiator is the first of its kind in Europe.
Yeah,
right?
so Euronext Growth Paris has secured roughly 11 million euros, $13 million in fresh funding as it doubles down on becoming Europe's first Bitcoin treasury company.
Yeah, so that's really all you need to hear. Of course, there's other layers of due diligence you should probably do on top of this, and we're going to make more videos in the future as we kind of like break down the strategy here and the approach to this market, right? Because this is what we do on this channel. You know, typically it's always been in the crypto markets. It's like some new trend emerges, whether it's DeFi or it's NFTs or it's
Bitcoin,
ordinals.
Yeah.
These are new like macro shifts within the crypto space. So it's like, all right, let's figure out what's going to have success longevity within these new trends.
Correct.
But this is our first time like trying to do this same activity in the stock market. Right?
Yeah, so I guess the question is, well, why even look into it? The reason is this traditional industry has been around for about 100 years or more.
Yeah.
And they're moving hundreds of trillions of dollars of like assets under management here. And so these asset managers, they need some sort of exposure to new technologies such as blockchain, right? Assets, right? Digital assets. And what that gives them is volatility. And they need volatility because that's how they make money.
Yeah.
Right? You can't have just like trades at 1%, 2%. Like,
yeah, in other words, they like to see the volume, right? Because that's their revenue bread and butter.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have a new industry forming, bringing in a new hot narrative, like you're saying, backed by government support with new regulation stuff. It's a perfect scenario for Wall Street, like fervor, right? They want to support this. They want to see more of this.
Yeah, and so it's not as simple as looking at PE ratios and like income like statements and all that stuff. You have to look at Bitcoins per share, Ethereum per share, the yield for Ethereum, like all that stuff. And so now the Wall Street has new metrics to kind of figure out, right? And so it's a new space for everybody. So let's take a look at Blockchain Group. So we have a market cap of 595 million.
Yeah, so this is, I want to say micro cap range, but it's definitely much significantly lower than MicroStrategy, which is like in the 100 billion plus category. So
yeah,
talk about upside differentials there, you know, therefore makes this much more risky, but again, has like a higher upside potential, right?
Yeah, another one, Strive Asset Management merges with asset entities to launch a public Bitcoin treasury company.
Yeah, so what is the differentiator here? Typically, most of these announcements come with that punchline statement. In this case, it is the first publicly traded asset manager on the Bitcoin standard. So kind of categorizing itself within like a, like a Goldman Sachs, right? Some sort of services company that manages wealth, but in this case, under the umbrella of the Bitcoin treasury standard. So
yeah, so this is a company that intends to acquire additional companies holding Bitcoin at a I guess a discount.
Yeah, essentially like struggling companies, and I think in particular they're targeting like the biotech sector. So find a struggling entity, acquire it, convert their assets into Bitcoin, therefore strengthening their, like you're saying, those key KPI indicators that signal health and growth to the market, right?
Yeah.
And so as long as you're able to continually onboarding Bitcoin or Ethereum into your treasury at like an accelerated rate, that is a signal the market's going to be looking for to essentially buy, right?
Yeah. So speaking of micro cap companies, the market cap for this one is 67 million.
Yeah, but keep in mind some of these are, because this is like a pre-merger, there's an eventual new ticker that's going to come from the merging of Strive to asset entities, and I think there's like a 5% ownership actually. So if you hold asset entities, once the new company is formed,
you get 5% of that.
Yeah, so the real market cap is really like 67 million times 20.
Times 20, yeah.
Which is, you're talking like $1 billion, right?
Right. All right, so we have a strategic. What does that say? Strategic ETH reserve list here.
Yeah, so it's not just Bitcoin, right? It's we got a new meta forming, Ethereum treasury company. So just like you kind of want to keep an eye on like what are the Bitcoin holdings of publicly traded companies. Now, there's a neat way to do that for Ethereum, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so we have the full list here. Ethereum Foundation, number one. Really, there's probably more entities holding more ETH, I think. And probably in the list somewhere is North Korea, but
I think I just missed this list actually.
you just missed this?
Yeah, I might be. What
Oh
does
yeah,
it go
yeah,
to?
yeah. You're somewhere on this list. It goes it goes down to around 137.
Say I must be 43 or something like that.
You're on your way, dude. You got to
Yeah.
creep your way up there somehow,
Right.
dude. You got to step it up, dude.
Well, they don't show everybody on this list, so you might be, somewhere between, 1 and 10 here. But yeah, SharpLink, that's another one. 198,000 ETH.
Significant holdings, dude.
Yeah, that's huge.
So in the ETH realm of like competitors, right? We just talked about Bitmine. It's exploding, but a lot of that is kind of like hype because they're not even on the list yet. They haven't actually acquired any Ethereum. They just simply announced their entry into this obvious race, right? But here you go, SharpLink Gaming. They were first movers. They're right there neck and neck with the foundation of Ethereum as far as like actual treasuries.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure we'll at some point surpass it and actually be number one. So if you're trying to bet on the horse that's going to actually be labeled as a micro strategy for Ethereum, like strategy, most likely SharpLink is like in the leading position, right?
Yeah. Pulse chains on here.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So until they spin off into like their own little S-Pack or whatever, like, which they could, I wouldn't be surprised. Like that's like one of the frothy signals, right?
And another one that's surprising here, Coinbase. I thought they would be, one or two.
Yeah, I would have bet money on that.
Yeah, I mean,
I just don't think they've only been like, they're not like all in on this, right? Like they have a lot of other business initiatives as a company, Coinbase. They're busy working on regulation and stablecoin
for sure
adoption and such. I don't think they've ever like considered treasury assets as like their main market mover advantage, right?
Yeah, I just still find it weird because they've been forward thinking. I mean, Coinbase has been around since 2012. That's 3 years after Bitcoin was built, right? So
yeah, it's just hard to predict like that this was the strategy all along for like company valuation.
I guess from my perspective, I would have assumed that they just had just like huge
more
reserves.
Conviction. More conviction.
Just like natural business is like, we have like 500,000 Bitcoin, and just that's what we have, But no.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. SharpLink article here. SharpLink earns 540,000 in rewards after staking entire Ethereum portfolio of nearly 200,000 ETH.
Yeah, so this to me is a big differentiator. It's, if you analyze who are the heads, you got Joe Lubin, co-founder to Ethereum, Consensus, all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. He's deeply entrenched on the actual technicalities of what Ethereum ecosystem is. And then you got Tom Lee, Wall Street analyst, whatever. It's kind of separated from that world. And this is a big move, in my opinion. It doesn't sound like a lot of money. They generated, like $500,000 in revenue as a result of this new yield. But this is a demonstration of like, a founder who understands the utility of Ethereum itself. It's like I can leverage this asset that is like the power horse of my company to generate new revenue, streams.
Yes.
By leveraging Web3 rails that, his companies of the past are severely like, major contributors for.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, this is only the beginning because that is like the most obvious use case for holding a bunch of ETH is you just stake it and you're part of the network. But you could do a ton of other stuff with ETH.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's the speculation. That's why you would buy SharpLink here.
Yeah.
All right. So what is it worth? And we're looking at a market cap of 836 million.
Yeah, but
But look at this dumping though.
Yeah. So this SharpLink experienced what Bitmine is experiencing right now a month ago, right? Mm-hmm. Just insane euphoric hype around the idea of an Ethereum treasury company, but they've had a month to correct from that, and Bitmine has not. So, if you're trying to speculate on these markets, I would expect some sort of similar trajectory for Bitmine.
Yeah, correction.
Yeah, you could choose to short that if you want, or just choose to wait for a buy opportunity down the line.
Yeah.
Whatever, right?
All right. Stablecoin issuer Circle applies for a national bank charter. So now we're getting crypto completely institutionalized.
Yeah, now we're talking about other sector categories, right? Not just treasury companies. There's other fundamental value products within crypto. And a big one is the stablecoin, right? So there's a couple companies very well positioned for this.
Yeah, Circle's been around for a while. They've partnered up with Coinbase as their distributor of USDC. And it's the second most popular stablecoin right after Tether.
Yeah, like you said. So it has like the historical presence. I think a recent IPO that's done very well. So Wall Street is already like paying attention to this thing.
Yeah, it has a price to earnings ratio like around 2,000. So it's like it's definitely overbought and it's overvalued. But yeah, I mean, it's stable coins. That's a pretty important aspect of finance.
Yeah, and then factor in like again the macro conditions. There's a couple of catalysts down the road for this sector, right? The incoming regulation and the Clarity Act, the Genius Act, all these things that once they're formally in place, these different stablecoin issuers are going to be main benefactors from that, right?
Yeah. So Circle's a huge one. All right, let's see the market cap, 45 billion, and I think Coinbase is at 90 billion.
Yeah. So different.
Here's the PE ratio right there, 2,000.
Yeah.
All right. So different sector, but this is just the institutionalization of crypto. And another one, PayPal introduces a 3.7 yield on their stablecoin. It's called PYUSD. And so I feel like this is going to be one of the more important things to pay attention to as far as stablecoins, because there's going to be several banks who are going to be issuing their own stablecoins. They're going to have different offerings, such as a yield on just holding that stablecoin.
Yeah.
And that offering is going to differ based on, whether it's a operating company versus a bank. An operating company has some revenue that could kind of help you bolster that percentage. And so it's going to get very competitive. And if you look at the traditional finance, if you store your money in a savings account, you're getting like 0.1%.
Yeah.
Like this is 30
significantly
times bigger, 37 times bigger.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of getting more, I guess, adoption for the stablecoin itself. We're, building a network around this, right, of different merchants, different retailers, whatever, that accept this stablecoin.
Yes.
Which they have the position to do it. This is a major traditional finance like player. I mean, PayPal's been around for several decades now, a couple decades.
Yeah.
And if you look at the chart, there's a different opportunity here. I don't think the market has truly picked up like on in this unique positioning. Just look at the all-time chart.
Yeah, they're definitely not paying attention.
Yeah.
74 billion in market cap. Yeah.
So they have the opportunity here to like you're saying, kind of prove this model before like the rest of the banking traditional finance sector kind of jumps on board. Everybody else is waiting for these regulatory clarities to kind of like be in place before they really, step up their game in a sense.
Yeah.
Right. But PayPal has already been out the door a couple of years now, kind of experimenting on this frontier. Right.
Yeah. All right. Continuing on here, we have Coinbase is driving adoption of Circle's USDC for payments, financial services. So yeah, Coinbase, USDC. I feel like they're a pretty big player. I kind of like. I'd rather hold USDC than Tether just because of the, historical FUD on Tether. But Tether is on its way to becoming a U.S. company. And so they're going to have to legally disclose everything that they have, assets under management, and should be interesting to see like what's under the skirt there.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so Coinbase, though, going back to Coinbase and its positioning, I mean, if you were to point a competitor to Coinbase, it'd probably be Robinhood.
Yeah.
Like at least the current market's perception is like, well, what is the sector category that Coinbase kind of fulfills? I mean, it's retail access to the crypto industry, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Trading interface, whatever, trading infrastructure. But it's actually kind of changing a bit. If you like look into this article, you can see their revenue model is much more reliant on this non-trading revenue, which is per the USDC support. right? And their frontline activities here is to further the adoption at scale for USDC. Even though they don't own the stablecoin, they have direct revenue benefits from it.
Yeah, stablecoin revenues have become a major contributor to Coinbase's bottom line. Non-trading revenue grew from 181 million in 2020 to 2.4 billion, now accounting to 42% of total revenue.
Yeah, and I think that's only going to get bigger, get larger.
Yeah.
So Coinbase is like you're saying, you're surprised that they haven't been more focused on like accumulating more crypto or whatever, because they have a different target in mind, right? Is to, accelerate the adoption of USDC because clearly it's becoming like their frontline revenue stream.
Yeah, and the deal between Coinbase and Circle is, I think Circle is giving Coinbase 50% of its yields on the fiat currency that they are essentially yielding from buying treasuries and all that stuff.
Yeah, so that is interesting. And if you look at Robinhood's market cap, they're like neck and neck, but I don't think Robinhood has this edge that Coinbase has. So I think once, again, like the stablecoin legislation comes through and then like that becomes maybe more of like a speculative like of interest more so than crypto treasury companies, that's when I think the market kind of picks up on the idea that Coinbase is actually a leader here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And severely undervalued. Right.
Yeah, 90 billion market cap, so it's on the high end. But what's happening in the regulatory adoption of crypto, like this is just only going to grow. All right, we're looking at another one, Trump Media Group. So this is a $5 billion market cap, and they're acquiring digital assets as well.
Yeah, so we're not going to go too in depth with this one or the next one, but next week we will. We're going to do like full deep dive videos on, Trump has a major position here. It's not like super obvious yet, but
yeah, he happens to be the president.
That's it. You got to factor that in. He has the killer advantage that no other player in this space does, right?
He's as inside as it gets.
Yeah, he literally has his hands on the levers here.
Yeah.
And at any moment, so long as he's like, once he's like as positioned as he can be, and remember, he's not alone here. He's got like a whole family here.
Yeah.
Working on his behalf, and they have mining companies going on, Bitcoin mining companies. They got new treasury company spinoffs. They're going all in on this new sector growth, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But the killer button he has at his disposal is at any moment he can kind of like really add a ton of fuel to this this mania.
Yeah, as soon as the United States starts acquiring Bitcoin, I mean, all these companies are just going to skyrocket just because that acquisition increases the value of Bitcoin and therefore multiples of percentages for each of these companies, treasury companies.
Yeah, and talk about, one of the main killer factors to evaluating a Bitcoin treasury company is its leader, right? It's talking head. MicroStrategy has Michael Saylor.
Yeah.
He spent the last 4 years building like a killer marketing strategy campaign around like the prospects of Bitcoin, therefore has onboarded a lot of interest in his company valuation.
Yeah.
If there's anybody on earth who can kind of like outdo that, it would be Donald Trump.
Yeah, 100%.
I would imagine.
100%.
Right? So yeah, there's that. And then Galaxy Digital, our last dark horse to mention.
Yeah, so Galaxy Digital, 8 billion market cap. Another one that's we're going to be talking about more, I guess, next week, right?
Yes. Yeah, so keep all these different things like on your little whiteboard somewhere. Just keep your eyes on everything because this is quickly evolving.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of opportunity for sure brewing in this space. And we think it's only just beginning. Like we said, there's a lot of like future catalysts coming with the regulatory front.
Yeah,
it's gonna
September.
add more fuel.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's it for us. If you guys found anything in the stock space that is interesting along the lines with crypto, put it in the comment section below. I appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Peace.